arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario. Take one step and then again. Let's do the Mario all together now. You got it. It's the Mario. Do the Mario. Swing your arms.
Yes, and starting out this weekend, we have Do the Mario from the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. It is definitely one of my favorite shows growing up. Sadly, it wasn't that well done back in the day here in Sweden. We had a lot of different cartoons and animations to watch. So for us, watching the Super Mario Brothers show was basically through VHS. But nonetheless, I really adore these movies, and I definitely still do, because there's so much nostalgia packed into this one, and it's just freaking hilarious. Anyway, this is Gameable Audio, and I am your host, Kristoffer Schensen. Welcome to the 10th episode of the new name and the rebranded version and everything. And today the theme is basically the sideshow Mario, just like the Super Mario Bros. Super Show was a show based on the Mario IP. We're going to talk about games that aren't coming from the main, or is there's a lot of games in that type of series, such as Mario Party, etc. Because, of course, Mario Party is a sideshow or spin-off on the original IP, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about the less known Mario games that are out there. Some of these, myself, I haven't heard of, or some of these I've actually played myself, so I have something else to add to them. But, of course, it's all about enjoying the music and getting to learn a little bit more about the composers, but also about the game. So let's join in together as we're going to listen to the first track of this week. This is from the game Hotel Mario, and the track is Hotel 5, the Variation 2. Hotel 5 Variation number 2 from the game Hotel Mario. And yeah, to me, I really enjoyed this track because it had a little bit more of the rock vibe to it. It doesn't feel like we've heard this type of music before in a Mario game. That's why I kind of liked it, and that's why I kind of wanted to pick the song as well. Of course, it sounds a little bit towards or being close to like a Ghost House track, but I still think like the choice of the instrument for this track, or the audio that actually got output through this track that we listened to, had more of the oomph of a rock song, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys agreed, but I really did adore it, and it was like a true variation of a Mario song that we haven't listened to before. So considering this track here, this track specifically, and the majority of the OST was composed by Jack Levy, and the company behind the game is none other than the American Philips Interactive Media Incorporation. Hotel Mario was actually released back in 1994 and was only presented on the Philips CDI, and this was basically mainly because of the results of Philips acquiring the rights to produce both Mario and Zelda titles after the plans of making a CD-ROM compatibility for the SNES. So it's really important to know this, but most of you guys already know that there weren't a lot of releases for the Philips CDI. Maybe you haven't heard of it, but that's because they weren't that popular either. They actually had really low sales on all of these games. First of all, the CDI didn't have much sales either. So that's kind of one of the main things in order why they never really were so popular, and because not that many people know about these games. Considering the composer here, Jack is actually pretty much an unknown composer when it comes to the VGM section, working with just a handful of games, and he's actually stopped working with video game music back in 1996, so 2 years after the release of Hotel Mario. But he did start out in 1994 working on a DOS game named Nomad, following up with Sesame Street, Counting Cafe for the Genesis, and also Around the World in 80 Days for DOS in 1994, and of course together with Hotel Mario during this year. In 1995 he also worked on a game called Madeline and the Magnificent Puppet Show for PC, and lastly Tonka Construct for the PC in 1996. So looking at this game, well, normally it's just Mario and Luigi running around wreaking havoc in Mushroom Kingdom. Not havoc per se, but they're trying to save Princess Peach. And of course we have the same old story here as well. But just as normal with the two brothers, but instead of walking around in the nature of Mushroom Kingdom, they are visiting Bowser's newly built hotels around the Mushroom Kingdom. And they're doing this in order to find, and I'm making the quote marks here, the permanent guest, Princess Toadstool. I have played this game myself. We actually did play this during one of these Videospelsklubbens Kalasen, VSK stream, that we usually tend to do once or twice per year. We're doing yearly basis at least once, usually happening towards the winter period. But anyway, at one of those times we actually did play the CDI and played Hotel Mario, and I mean, it's still a decent game, to be honest. It has a little bit of a sluggish of control and so on. The music is still nice. You can still recognize a lot of different music, but there are a lot of original tracks like the Hotel 5 version as well. But you have some tracks that come from the other games, so you are able to re-listen to the ones you actually do know. So considering this, you're basically walking around in sections. It's a one-screen puzzle where Goombas and animals, basically or enemies from the Mushroom Kingdom, is walking around, opening doors, and your job is basically to open and close the doors, trying to collect items and so on, and close all the doors, and then you progress to the next hotel. And you will basically go through the classic of 7 hotels, and then you will meet Bowser in Bowser's Castle, if I remember correctly. I'm a little bit iffy on that on the last section, but there's 7 hotels anyway. But yeah, it was a decent game, to be honest. The score and reviews this game got was a bit still. Considering what the reviewers said, they said that they really adored the game. It was fun, it has its niche, but it becomes dull fast. And definitely I agree with that kind of statement in this case, because it wasn't that much. So it has some variations on the original Mario series, that you're still jumping around and jump on the enemies, but opening and closing doors is kind of new to the Mario IP, so it felt very new, to be honest. But considering that we usually run around and jump on stuff with Mario, the next game is not gonna be that type of style. It's actually going to be something totally different, because now we're going into Mario's Picross. And we're going to listen to the second background music track, so BGM2. And as I want to repeat, this is from Mario's Picross. Welcome back from the blips and the bloops. That was the background music number 2 in the Mario's Picross. So looking at the composer here, so the track we heard here is from the early Japanese composer Toshiyuki Ueno, and the game here was developed by the Japanese company Jupiter Corporation. back in March 1995. So it was a little bit 1 year after Hotel Mario here. I will actually go, as we were listening and going through all these Mario games, I will actually follow them in a chronological order here as well. That's the little niche I did, instead of going everywhere. So, but yeah. Anyway, the game here with Mario's Picross, it was only released for the Game Boy, the original Game Boy here. But it did also spark a sequel called Mario Super Picross. However, due to international sale failures, the sequel was only released on the Super Famicom in Japan. And the game, it did also get a digital version for the Nintendo 3DS, and this was back in 2011. And that was, of course, through the Virtual Console, through the eShop that you needed to purchase it, and then you were able to play it. And from what I know, considering this, Mario is actually working as an archaeologist here in this game. We know in Dr. Mario he's a doctor, we know he's been a tennis player, we know he's been a golf player, we know he's been a soccer player, we know he's been an athlete, doing all sorts of different things in Mario and Sonic at the Olympics and so on. But he is also some sort of astronaut in the Mario Galaxy game, so I would say it's easier to say what Mario is not. And I don't want to say everything that comes to mind because it's not suited for a younger audience. So I'll keep it there. But everybody could maybe figure out what I was thinking about. But anyway, considering the composer here, so Toshiyuki is also one of those composers who started out early in the Nintendo days. Seems that he did have a niche when he was writing the VGM music, and he only had actually a handful of titles starting. And of course, Japanese titles, I'm always gonna slaughter these. I will try to get my Japanese lessons up to par a little bit more, so it's hopefully would be easier for me to read Japanese titles in the future, but I'm still not quite there yet. So bear with me on this one. So the first game out here is Hokkaido Rensa Satsujin Otsuka ni Kyu for the PC-98, and this game was released in 1985. But did also get a following up with a port for the NES back in 1987. So 2 years after the PC-98 release. Later he was working on all the songs for the Itadaki Street, Watashi no Omise ni Yotete, which was released for the NES back in 1991. He was working with additional music side by side with Hirokazu Tanaka on the Earthbound game for the Super Nintendo back in 1994, also known as Mother 2 in Japan. And also he did work on the Picross sequel for the Super Nintendo back in 1995, and finally the Picross NP Volume 1 for the Super Nintendo that was released back in 1999, and that was the latest credited song or game that I could find from Toshiyuki. And as I said here, Mario was working as an archaeologist here, so in Picross, for people that don't know the concept of this, you basically have two rows, one with, usually it could be either number or letters, and the top one would have the other one. Usually that is just showing how many squares inside of this two-dimensional screen that will be filled out. So you're basically utilizing like a sharpening chisel tool in order to mark and make pictures inside this game. And considering the playtime, I'm actually just were interested in like how long is this Game Boy title, because we know Game Boy don't have a lot of space to work with. But it's around 16 to 17 hours of gameplay in this game. It's over, if I remember correctly, it's over like 256 maps or levels in this game, over, I think it was 5 difficulties, or if it was just 3, I don't remember exactly now, but there were multiple difficulties and a lot of these Picross puzzles to solve. So, considering back in that day, I think getting this to a kid maybe not be as fun, but there's a lot of logical puzzling that one can do. So I think this game was more suited towards a more grown-up audition or audience. Audition, come on, Chris, you know this. Audience here. So it is really nice and neat to see these kind of things. I will most likely, when I'm thinking when the Game Boy came along, never had a Game Boy sadly, but anyway, considering as I played as other at my friend's place, I never came across this. I actually came across this much later in my life, and I am, of course, I play Picross puzzles today on my phone, and it's so simple and it's so nice to just activate the brain. Of course, I'm not good at them, but I still enjoy them, and I think that is something similar happening here. But since it's a Mario Picross, I think a lot of people thought that, boy, it's Mario, we know Mario, fun games for kids, let's get this for our kid. And then the kid got it, and it's like, it's a shitty game, and parents didn't want to game that much, at least not from my experience. So they most likely just sold it or never really bought it. I mean, considering that you could just look at the background on it and see that, okay, it's not a running Mario game. So it could be something like that, and that's why the sale numbers didn't go up that much, and it's now an unsuccessful and international failed game, considering that. Anyway, super interesting, and it's nice to see something way off the book from what we are used to. We're so used to playing Mario, running from left to right. And now we're sitting here with Mario and solving puzzles. Of course, when we were just thinking about running around 2D space and so on, enemies coming back and forth, it is about patterns. Patterns also is like a similar thing to puzzles. You're trying to solve the puzzle that is the level, trying to figure out where you need to go, how you need to get there, and end up at the flag, and in the end, of course, rescue Princess Peach. So there come similarities to it, but of course not game-wise, not gameplay-wise, to be more specific. But considering the song, though, I really found this song very entertaining. It's nice. Considering all the different songs that were available for this soundtrack, I think it was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 background music styles. They're all like 5 minutes long, so you're spending a lot of time. And of course, in this game, as I said, it's 16 to 17 hours of gameplay in this game. The music will be very repetitive, but for some reason it's very laid back, it's really neatly made. And I considering how much I've listened to it just up to making this episode, I was just bobbing back and forth. It was really playful, like a Mario song, considering the Hotel 5 version we were listening to prior to this one. So we're getting more of a Mario vibe here, but it's not the usual ones, but still very playful, like the Mario soundtrack is. So I really, really did enjoy this, and I hope you guys did that as well. But none other than that, something else Mario has done is to be a teacher. Because of, the simple game of Mario Teaches Typing. Never really heard about this title prior to this. I heard a lot of different weird titles, but not Mario Teaches Typing. So I dug deeper into this and just noticed it's just more about grammar and writing and so on, and a lot of bad animations with Mario. It's just weird. But we will listen to the type, because there's a lot of tracks inside this game that were from like the older Mario games. We're going to listen to something that is like unique for this game. So we're going to listen to Typing Express from Mario Teaches Typing 2. Mario Teaches Typing 2, the Typing Express. And yeah, this was like going to the circus or going to a fun fair, so to speak. Very playful. I really enjoy this track as well. Most of the tracks in Mario Teaches Typing is from the older games, so we all know these kind of tracks. But there are some tracks that exist in this game that is fully original to the title itself. And the music that we heard from was from a Roland SC55 MK2. For those people who like those things, it's just in my notes here that that's the audio chip they were using in order to record this. So yeah, if that helps, go wild, people. I have no idea what that means. I know a Roland, but I don't know much more, to be honest. I'm just a happy amateur, like I usually said. Anyway, enough of me mumbling away, speaking random gibberish and so on. Let's get to the business here. That's what we are here, right? So, the composers for this title. Yes, there's more than one on this one. There's actually 3 in total, but we go with the first 2 that I actually know a little bit more of. The Americans, it's Rick Jackson and Brian Lucetti. And then we have one from unknown origin. I'm a little bit unsure, but considering the last name, I guess it's American as well, but it's Ronald Valdez. And the game, it was developed by the American studio Brainstorm and was released in 1997. And this title was released both for PC and Macintosh. Considering Brainstorm, for people who don't know much about them, this is actually a division of Interplay that was focusing on educational software only. And considering the titles I could find was about just like 4 or 5 titles, so it seems like it was a pretty short-lived branch in Interplay. But I guess nonetheless that they had a good intention at heart, and it's really fun to see another title yet again with Mario that we most likely didn't expect. But considering the art style and everything they chose for this title is somewhat bizarre, because all the characters and how they look and so on, the characters themselves, they're like skewed to some bit, and it looks really weird. But anyway, in this game, Mario Teaches Typing, it is just like the prequel, the Mario Teaches Typing. Basically, you have your character, and you will proceed moving with your character by typing words. These words are shown somewhere on the screen, and you need to basically go wild and get as many words in per minute as possible, until, of course, you reach the end. And this could be like sentences or just words making up random shenanigans. It's all about you clicking on the keyboard, writing the words themselves. So Teaches Typing is really not much about understanding how to type. It's literally click on the keyboard and learn to type faster. I guess that is as close as we can get with this type of game. This game is also still voice act as well. I'm pretty sure Charles Martinet was the one who made the voice for Mario in this game. And it's so nice to see that we get a voiceover so early, I would say, especially getting Charles Martinet, because I'm a little bit unsure exactly when he started out. I don't think this was the first game, but it was definitely one of the first games where we could hear him, most likely. I'm a little bit unsure. I know there's a lot of other people that really are into these kind of things and know exactly like when and how and which game and which order everything is. But on my part, who has this more wider knowledge of gaming and so on, I feel pretty confident saying that this might have been one of the first titles for this. So, considering the composers here, all the boys here are well versed within video game music, so it's going to be interesting to look into these a little bit later as well, not just talking about them in this specific episode. So, we go first out with Rick, who is credited in 51 games working with video game for more than 20 years as well. He started out back in 1992 with a game called Castles 2, Siege and Conquest for DOS. And also, since there's so many titles, I'm not going to go through them all. I'm going to handpick a couple of ones that we might have heard of. Of course, I'm going to follow this like structure with all the different composers here for these 3. But first, Rick. So, considering after Castles 2 here, we have The Lost Vikings from DOS back in 1993, Warcraft Orcs and Humans for DOS and Macintosh back in 1994 and 1995, Descent 2 for Macintosh in 97, Baldur's Gate for PC in 98, MDK2. That's a tongue twister for you, folks. And this was released both for Dreamcast and for PC back in 2000. We also have a little bit newer here. Well, it's not so new now that I see the date here. But it's Deadpool for Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. And this was released back in 2013. And apparently, I think it was recently. Apparently. I'm silly. Anyway, lastly, we have the enhanced edition of Icewind Dale that was basically re-released back in 2014. So looking at the similar small work that Rick did for that one is basically just rearranging and supervising. So all the music were basically correct because it did work on the originals as well. Heading over to the next one, Brian. He is credited for 69 games, starting out with Star Trek, the 25th anniversary for DOS back in 1992, so the same year as Rick started. The first Mario Teaches Typing game, he worked on that one as well for DOS back in 1992, and he was specifically working with movie clip music, so not really soundtrack per se, more towards the movie clips with those small cinematics. We have Clay Fighters for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis back in 1993 and 1994. Wolfenstein 3D, this one was actually interesting to me because this one was released for the 3DO back in 95. I'm not well versed with the 3DO, so I'm always interested, and it's always fun when you can see that one pop up. I'm pretty sure I never played on one either. So I'm just thinking, like, would have been interesting to play the 3DO with Wolfenstein 3D, because Wolfenstein 3D is still a good game. Anyway, moving on. Casper for the PS1 back in 1996. We got Norse by Northwest. Return of the Lost Vikings for the Sega Saturn. And also PC and DOS, yes. Back in 1997. And then the original Fallout game. I'm just in love with the Fallout game. And this one was released in 97 for both DOS and PC. So much text. It's so much easier when we have text doing this, but still talking nonstop all the time, going through all this, is still a lot of things to process. But that is what happened, people. Going through, checking. I don't want to get the dates wrong or anything. That's why I need to have some sort of like letter wall of text in front of me, so everything here I can at least go through structurally. So now everybody knows that. I guess nobody thought else. But later, anyway, let's move on. From Fallout, we're going back to Fallout. Not back, we're going forward to the sequel, the Fallout 2, which was released for PC back in 1998. And the latest work that he did was on Baldur's Gate, the Enhanced Edition for PC back in 2012. Damn, son. Now, there's a lot of interest when going through all these composers, especially the composers that have been going through so many different kind of games. And noticing here, we actually notice that they are even working for Silicon and Valley. No, not Silicon and Valley. God dang it. Now it's just brain freeze here. It's like trying to figure stuff out here. Of course, I can just edit this out later, but I'm not doing that because I'm doing an honest show here. I'm doing everything, not cutting anything really. But it's interesting that they worked for what in the end became Blizzard. No, it's Silicon and Synapse. Now I'm back on track. So it's so nice to see here because we're noticing a lot of different games that they've been working on for different. So I'm guessing they work basically on different ports here because I don't know for sure, but I don't think they worked for Blizzard per se, because their games are like everywhere on what they have worked. So I'm guessing more freelance than actually in-house working. Might be unsure. Might have worked everywhere. Anyway, the last one, Ronald. He's the last credited composer here of the three, but nonetheless, he has worked on a whole 39 games. So he's not new into the business either. Considering where he started out with Mario Teaches Typing, but he was the voice editor, and this was released in 92, of course, I already said that. We got SimCity and Enhanced CD-ROM for DOS in 93. He worked on similar game titles as the other two, such as SimCity. We got Casper, Waterworld, Fallout, and he also worked on Red Asphalt, which I didn't talk about with the other two, but since it was one new that I didn't take up, let's go ahead and say it right now. So PlayStation 1 back in 1998. We got Giant Citizen Kabuto for PC back in 2000. We got Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, which I really adore, not for the GameCube, but for... Wait, I played this on PS2. Don't know exactly the release date, but GameCube and Xbox was the first ones, according to the data that I found, and those were released back in 2002. And the last game that Ronald worked on was for Icewind Dale Enhanced Edition for Mac and Linux back in 2014. So basically the same as Rick there. But yeah, there's a lot of text to go through here. But yeah, super interesting to go through these. I will definitely write these composers down. We'll go through them at another time, going in more in-depth analysis and looking at the music that they did. So, considering that, I have never played actually Mario Teaches Typing, not either one or the second title here. But considering that I don't like to just play a game that is about writing and being a fully educational game where Mario is teacher, basically. We also have Toadstool, and I'm pretty sure a Toad was joining in at some spots as well. And they're running around in the Mushroom Kingdom doing a lot of different shenanigans, I would say. But still, very different game style because you need to write in order to progress in this game. So the last title that we have for this week is going to be a special one as well. I did not actually know this game existed, and now I kind of want it. But I don't own a Game Boy Advance, so it's not going to happen. Anyway, we're going to listen to Snowy from Mario Pinball Land. And there we're rolling out the last track of the week. Haha, rolling, you say. This was Mario Pinball Land, Snowy. And yeah, this is a pinball game. And it actually looks pretty fun, to be honest. That's why I kind of want the Game Boy Advance now, because it was released for the Game Boy Advance back in 2004. But considering the music here for Mario why will I always say paintball? So many times I said paintball while I was talking about this game with friends. But this was Mario Pinball Land, and it was created by the British studio. Well, I'm not talking about the game. This was not developed. This was the music for it was by the British studio Nimrod Productions. Sadly, I couldn't find a single name presented for who was working at Nimrod at that point in time. So all I can sadly say is that Nimrod worked on this soundtrack. The game was developed here by another British studio called Fuse Games. And yep, this game was released for the Game Boy Advance, and it was 2004. The game was also later available for the Wii U back in 2014 as a digital download through the Virtual Console store, so the eShop and the Virtual Console. Sadly, I'm pretty sure the Wii U closed down its store, so you can't get it anymore, which is sad to me, because now I really need to get a Game Boy Advance and then get the game. It costs money. Don't really have money right now. but that is things that do happen. But I will definitely get this one later in the future because it really looks sweet too. And I myself, I do love pinball games. I actually got in a couple of pinball games to Game Boy and other handheld consoles, and I just adore them. They're really fun. I'm really bad at them, but I really adore them. Anyway, we have 2 pinball machines at work, and I really adore playing on those as well, even though I don't have always the time to do so. But considering the Nimrod Productions, to talk a little bit more about the composers, not my love for pinball games, Nimrod Productions were formed back in 2001 and have mainly worked, from what I could find, on the Drivers series, being the first game that they worked on in the series was Driver 2, which was a game that was released for the PlayStation 1 back in 2000. Later they worked on Driver, the third game in the installation, where the E is a 3, so it's not Driver 3, it's just Driver, where the E is a 3, for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox back in 2004, which was also later released on the PC back in 2005. After that one, we have Driver Parallel Lines for the PS2 and Xbox back in 2007, which was also later released for the Wii and the PC later that year. Lastly, we have Driver San Francisco, released back in 2011 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, and also later released on Macintosh back in 2012. So that's a little bit of Nimrod Productions. I actually don't know much more. There were little to none information about Nimrod Productions. It seems like they're still in action, but not a lot of information surrounding them, which makes me believe that do they even want to work or something? I'm very just confused if this could be just a parallel line but still working, because they've been working on a lot of titles for Reflection Games, and I'm pretty sure Reflection Games is still active, but they're part of Ubisoft, if I remember correctly. So I'm wondering what the hell is going on here and how everything kind of fits, but would have loved to have more information about Nimrod Productions more than the people that kind of started it all. So, with that said, let's head over to see a little bit about what the game is about. Since I haven't played this one, I actually read up a little bit, and I just found it was hilarious story-wise of what is going on. So, the story in why Mario becomes a ball, basically, is that Mario and Princess Peach and some toads are visiting the fun fair while waiting in line to ride the Sky Cannon. To ride it, the rider must be turned into a ball first through the pinballer, which is, I guess, a machine. Didn't look at I just read the information, so I haven't seen any cinematics or anything. But anyway, after which they are shot out of a cannon. The toad who tries it first has fun. As Peach is about to take her turn, 2 Goombas appear and changes the direction of the cannon and aiming it towards Bowser's castle. Then Mario uses the pinballer to turn himself into a ball and to go and save Peach. So it's very small and structured, and basically you're playing this pinball-wise one screen, and things kind of develop over time. So it's one of those evolving pinball games, but you're still playing just courses. So there are a finish to them, so you will continue from map to map onwards, and this was also a pretty lengthy game. I think if I remember correctly, the playthrough, I think it was 1 or 2, but it was still like 3-4 hours long, as I remember. I might be wrong as well here, but it was pretty hefty in time. So it's super interesting, and I'm just really interested in trying this out. If you guys have tried this one, please do write in the comment section, because I would love to hear more, especially about the music. I haven't listened to each and every track, but would be interesting to hear what you guys, the listeners, think about the music while playing the game. Considering this song specifically, I think it was a kind of easy pick for me, considering the different tracks that we had in this game. Some tracks were, yet again, something we could be reminding ourselves, but most of the tracks were original content. But I really like the snowy one, because it brings another vibe. Usually in snow levels for Mario games, they usually have the more serene, easygoing tracks. But with this one, it's a little bit more almost like a Sonic track. It has a little bit more speed to it. It has some sort of attitude added to it. So I really adored the track, as it wasn't trying to be fully Mario. It's still trying to be its own thing and trying to play a Mario game as a pinball, like what do you expect out of the music? It's hard to kind of like, hey, they're doing this, they're doing that. It's really hard to structure that thing. So how would it sound in a pinball machine? And I think they really hit a good mark here, because I really liked the speed, I really liked the attitude that it came along with, and that's why I think it was a really good pick in my opinion. So I really adored this as well. So considering the tracks that we've been listening to for this week, we listened to Mario running around in hotels. We went through to listen to some background music while Mario was being archaeologist. We were listening to some typing exercisements as Mario was running around, and we were making him progress by riding and ending up with Mario just doing somersaults, rolling around on a screen, hitting things. And I think this is the only time where we have a game where Mario doesn't take damage from rolling into things. He actually starts scoring instead. But whatever you do, don't fall down. That's what I'm saying. No, but I really adored looking through the different tracks that we had for today. I took some extra time to actually go through and try to find more and more information, as this episode was delayed 1 week. And of course, I was recording this in the week that came along that I added the time for. And yeah, I'm sorry that it had to be delayed, but well, it's hard to record something when your PC is not even plugged in, so that was the main reason, and there was a lot of things going on. But I'm back on track, and I will try to hold the bi-weekly for this section. But on top of that, other episodes, if you're interested in listening to more of my voice, hopefully in a better quality than it is today, you can find those episodes on Gameable Audio, by either on our homepage, videospelsklubben.se, Spotify, or in your closest podcast app. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias as well. It would help enormously. Just getting in contact with me. It's super fun to see what you guys think about the music and what other music you can come to think of. You can reach out on either Facebook or on Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio and you'll find it. You can also support this podcast for future content and quality upgrades, but also in the end, the future composers by becoming a Patreon. And the current awesome backers that we have today is Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. Thank you so much for being a supportive part of the podcast. And links where you can either buy or support the composers that behind the music that we'll listen to today. I don't think I will find much at all though, but we will see what we can find, and if there are anything, you'll find those in our main post at videospelsklubben.se. So, considering the next episode as well, yes, I've been trying to see if I can mix everything up to have a composer on next time. Sadly, that did not work out. So, we're going to do a little bit of a special one, since you know I love remixes, and we haven't been listening to any remixes in a while. So, next episode in 2 weeks will be focused on remixes. And sadly, most likely, it will be less songs. I think we will only listen to 3 remix songs next time. But I hope we can handpick some really good ones, because I know there are a lot of good ones out there. Of course, I've been listening to some of them myself, but we'll see which ones I will pick for the next episode. But with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining in me talking about Super Mario the Sideshow. So do take care, and see you all guys next time.